Welcome to today's edition of the Daily Insider here on VegasInsider.com. Kevin Rogers and Thom Cunningham with you. Happy 420, Tuesday, April 20th. I'll just leave it at that. And let's go over a lot of stuff, Thom.
Yes.
We haven't had you on the last few days, but now you're back because you've watched your movies. We're going to talk about that in a little bit, though.
Man.
You watched your 100 Oscars movies.
A lot, yeah.
But let's start off with Major League Baseball and what we got from last night. There wasn't a lot of games. Let's go over them really fast, and then we'll get to tonight's action. And in Major League Baseball last night, Cardinals a winner over the Nationals. They just continue to be so inconsistent, St. Louis, with the way they played. But I want to get to, and also San Francisco a winner at Philadelphia.
Yep.
But Milwaukee, that's a really good win at San Diego last night. They beat the Padres 3-1. Brandon Woodruff, he outduels Joe Musgrove. So Joe Musgrove throws a no-hitter against the Texas Rangers in the last two starts now. He's lost.
Yeah, but he's pitched well, so there's some conviction there with the Padres rotation. I think with San Diego coming into the year, the question really wasn't the front end of their rotation. It was more of the back end. And Joe Musgrove now, two consistently good outings, I think brings conviction to the depth of their rotation as the season goes on. You can't really, I wouldn't put too much into a loss against the best pitcher on the Brewers, in my opinion, is Brandon Woodruff. So although it was a loss, the pitching was good for San Diego, and it was a 3-1 game. You got 162 of these games, so I wouldn't beat myself over the head about it.
American League, Patriots Day, the White Sox fall behind the Red Sox 6-1 after one. Lucas Giolito gets lit up. So
yeah.
Boston ends up splitting that 4-game series with Chicago. And the Red Sox, they won the 9 in a row. They lost to Minnesota,
right.
And then they split with the White Sox. They lost the 2 in the doubleheader on Sunday. But they continue to play well, considering the way the Yankees have been playing and how bad they've been.
Yeah.
And Tampa Bay's turning on of late, but Boston, though, very impressive after the 0-3 start.
Yeah, how could you not be? We talked about this a little bit before coming on air, that Boston's going to have to hit their way to the playoffs this year. And if you look at the game against what a lot of people say is an AL contender in the White Sox against their best pitcher, Giolito, Boston did exactly that. They had 17 hits, scored 11 times. And if you look at that hit column total for Chicago, I mean, they got 9 off of Boston's arms. But they were able to bend, not break in terms of allowing runs, and then the bats were able to bring Boston home. So look for the Red Sox to use this formula to their advantage. But the rotation, this is a good start for Boston in the year, but the rotation in that pitching staff for the Red Sox, I still have a lack of conviction as the season progresses if they will be able to maintain this pace.
The Rays end up going to Kansas City, and they win the opener. It was freezing there last night. And this guy, Josh Lemon, who a lot of people don't know about, he's a very good pitcher. He pitched well last season whenever he had opportunities for the Rays, and he outduels Danny Duffy, who had a good outing for Kansas City. But the Royals, who played well against the Angels, and the Blue Jays won both those series, they lose to this Tampa Bay team, who obviously, still a very good team, American League champs. Yeah. But after they got swept by the Red Sox, they come back and they play well against the Yankees. And I understand the Yankees' record isn't good, but it's still a good team.
Right.
But Tampa Bay, though, they easily could have had a letdown after sweeping the Yankees on the road, and they didn't.
Well, what's interesting is, we'll get into this in a minute as well, but Tampa Bay, they're actually opened as underdogs for their game against Kansas City tonight. But you look at that error column, 3 is too many, and then you go to the game right under it, which we'll get to in a second, another 3 errors. Anytime you have 3 errors, you can't really expect to win the game. Even though Danny Duffy did pitch well, you're facing the reigning AL champions. 3 errors is not enough, even at home, to get the job done.
Texas wins at the Angels, and LA was off for a few days due to Minnesota's COVID issues.
Right.
So the Angels, I don't know if they were out of sorts or whatever, but Texas, who avoided a sweep against Baltimore on Sunday, they won in extra innings. Texas has been a really good underdog recently on the road. They took 3 of 4 from Tampa Bay, plus 200 last night against Dylan Bundy. Go up 6-0. Angels have a big inning, but the Rangers are a team that a lot of people have written off, at least early on, but they played well.
Yeah, I was one of them. They written them off. I probably still will, but they're competitive. And when you're betting, especially when you're betting the run line, these are things you want to know. Which bottom feeders, per se, not trying to be disrespectful, for which teams that you expect to be at the bottom are actually going to compete well. And in the AL, I think Texas has really taken that title over. And in the NL, I think the Pittsburgh Pirates have kind of competed very well because the talent level for these teams, they should not be close or really competitive in most games. And not only are they competitive, they're winning a lot as underdogs. So Texas and the Pirates kind of fall into those categories.
The Dodgers, how about that? They've lost 2 in a row now.
Yeah.
After they lose Sunday to San Diego, and then they go to Seattle and fall to the Mariners 4-3. Mariners go up 3-0 after 2, and they hold on. And the Mariners only had 4 hits in the game, but still, Justice Sheffield, he's an up-and-coming pitcher for the Mariners. That's a really good outing at home. And Seattle, they've been competitive too, and they took 2-3 from Houston, and granted the Astros have some injury issues right now, but Seattle definitely, they played well so far.
Yeah, and just looking at the box numbers, you look at the 4 games we have on screen right now, all favorites had 1 or more errors and lost. So that was absolutely the story for Monday night's game, was defensive play, or lack thereof, I should say. With the Dodgers, though, I wouldn't be too concerned. You know, they're still they are the best team in baseball. But Seattle, we had just talked about teams that were predicted to be at the bottom of the standings that are competing well. Seattle, actually, a lot of people thought of as a surprise team this year, and they are another team that is competing very well and winning a lot of games as underdogs, especially in T-Mobile Park. So just bear in mind that the Mariners are much better than advertised as the season progresses.
Now to Tuesday's action in Major League Baseball. Arizona's at Cincinnati. Zach Gallen makes his second start of the season against Luis Castillo. And Castillo, he was staked that 4-0 lead against the Giants his last time out, but then gave up 4 runs in the bottom of the first inning. He's a very up-and-down pitcher. And Zach Gallen, who had a 5-0 lead in his last start against Oakland, the A's came back and won. Now Gallen's a dog. Arizona continues their road trip after they split a 4-game series with Washington, and the Reds 7-2 at home. They lose on Sunday to Cleveland with Shane Bieber on the mound, so understandable they got shut down in that game. And I think Zach Gallen and Luis Castillo, I've always had problems with him. It's always been an up and down thing. I feel like he pitches well against the not-so-great teams. Arizona is probably in that mix, but you're going with Arizona's ace tonight.
Yeah, I think the run line is worth looking at if you're looking at the Diamondbacks at all today. In the last 5 meetings between Arizona and Cincinnati, the underdog has covered the 1.5 run line. So the trend is, maybe Arizona doesn't win, but they should be able to keep this game close.
St. Louis is at Washington. The Cardinals won that first game of that series last night. And here's a note, Tom, on the Cardinals, that their last 2 games that they have won, the next game they got shut out.
Wow.
So the offense is so inconsistent. And there's a lot of good hitters in that lineup with the Cardinals, with Paul Goldschmidt and Arenado.
Yeah.
Yadi Molina's had a really good season.
DeJong.
Yeah, they are a really good lineup. I do like the under in this game, though, tonight.
Okay.
It's up to 9.5. Adam Wainwright just lost to Washington last week. Adam Wainwright in his career has been a good underdog. He's pitched well in that role. Patrick Corbin, going back to last season, he is winless in his last 10 starts. So he has just not been good. He got bombed by Arizona in his last start, giving up 10 runs in 2 innings. So now you're facing a good St. Louis lineup, and you face a not-so-great Arizona lineup, and they got to him. But I think this is one that he pitches well in. Washington's offense is a little inconsistent as well. I just think that this is way too much of an overreaction with that total.
Yeah, and Washington, of the 14 games they've played, 8 they've gone under. So a little over half of the games they've played have gone under. So the trend does slightly favor the run total going under if you are looking in the direction of Washington. The Nationals, they have actually won 10 straight games at home when favored against the National League on a Tuesday. So I'm with you, Kevin. I think the trend in terms of a winner is a bit too specific, a bit unpredictable. I like the trend that says Washington will go under. Give me the under at 9.5.
Yeah, I just don't trust Patrick Corbin until he turns it around.
Right.
It's very hard to. And again, he was a heavy favorite against Arizona. Now it's a little more reasonable still. San Francisco's at Philadelphia, and Zach Wheeler goes for the Phillies tonight. He's going to try to get on track against Logan Webb, who at times last year hit a couple underdog wins, and the Giants, they're 10-6. They shut out the Phillies last night. Bryce Harper was the only player that did anything offensively in that game. He had 3 hits off Kevin Gausman, and the rest of the offense really didn't do much. So now we'll see what the Phillies can do. And the Phillies at 7-3 at home. They were an underdog last night, and kind of explained why, and they ended up losing that game to the Giants. But San Francisco, they just continue to grind out these wins.
Yeah, some interesting stats, I should say trends around the run line for San Francisco, or the run total, I should say. San Francisco, they have gone under in 12 of 16 games this year. 3 of their last 5 games, they've shut out their opponent. So there's a lot of low-scoring, good pitching going on with San Francisco's club right now. Maybe you look into that direction when betting this game, because the Phillies, they lost 5 of 7. So it could go, either way. I like going under, though, with how good San Francisco has been holding teams off the scoreboard.
The Mets and the Cubs, they are hooking up tonight from Wrigley Field, and the Mets, they're coming off a pretty good outing against Colorado, their last time out this past weekend, and they face Chicago, who, again, they've not been good offensively. They're the one bust out on Saturday,
right,
but they end up losing on Sunday night to the Braves, and Jake Arrieta goes tonight as an underdog against the Mets.
Yeah, I think Chicago's okay here. They've covered the run line in 4 straight against the Mets. They've actually won 4 straight games when facing the Mets. And here's an interesting trend. The Cubs have won 14 of 15 games when playing the NL East at night after losing at home. So they tend to rebound very well at home at night. So, take that for what it is. But in terms of head-to-head matchups, the Chicago Cubs seem to have the Mets number more times than not. But if any of that, you don't like any of that, if you fancy the Mets but you're undecided for some reason, keep in mind the run total has gone under in 3 of the last 4 meetings between both teams. So I think the Cubs might get the job done, but it might not be as much of a hit fest as one might perceive it with the pitchers on the mound.
The Brewers and the Padres, they meet up tonight from San Diego, and this is actually going to be a really good pitching match. Again, Corbin Burns, who's put up great numbers for Milwaukee so far on the season. He's a short underdog.
Yeah.
Chris Paddock goes for San Diego, and I think a lot of people want to jump on Corbin Burns because you're getting him as an underdog. Brewers won the opener last night 3-1, and now San Diego's a short favorite here.
Yeah, and the Brewers have seen the underdog win 3 straight games when they are playing in San Diego. And so that trend would back Burns. And another thing with Corbin Burns is he is making his way through the Cy Young odds list. He wasn't even on the betting ticket to start the season. He is now moving up and up as the season progresses. So keep your eye on Corbin Burns. He is the real deal for the Brewers.
And the American League now, Carlos Rodon coming off the no-hitter against the Indians. He faces them again tonight in Cleveland.
Against a good pitcher in Plesac.
Well, Zach Plesac gave up 6 runs the last time he faced him in that game. Plesac was the opposing pitcher to Rodon in that no-hitter last Wednesday.
Yep.
And Plesac actually had good numbers against the White Sox last year. Just had a bad inning on Wednesday. Now you wonder with Rodon, how's it going to work out with him off the no-hitter? We saw Joe Musgrove throw the no-hitter for San Diego. He ended up losing his next start. So now you face the same team again. Cleveland's back at home. They've got a good home record, and the Indians are short dog.
Yeah, and Cleveland, they've covered the run line in 3 of the last 4 games when facing Chicago as the underdog. The run total has also gone under in 3 of the last 4 meetings played between both teams. Cleveland won the last meeting against Chicago. When these 2 teams faced last, Cleveland won. In the last 5 games between both teams, no one has won a back-to-back game. So that should tell you that the White Sox are going to win this game. But again, Cleveland has covered the run spread in, 3 of the last 4 games when they are the underdog against Chicago. So just bear that in mind. This is a very tricky game to bet on.
Elsewhere in the American League, Toronto and Boston, they meet at Fenway Park, and the Red Sox, that's a really good pitching matchup. The Red Sox with Eduardo Rodriguez and Hyunjin Ryu goes for Toronto. Red Sox, it's almost basically a pick 'em.
Yeah.
And we'll see what Toronto can do here as they coming at 7-9 and struggled this past weekend offensively, and they faced a really hot Boston team.
Yeah, Boston's bats are really going to be tough to slow down right now. Boston, they have won 6 straight divisional games as well, so the trend does favor the Red Sox. Boston, they've won 2 of their last 3 games when facing Toronto. I actually like the run total going over in this game. However, 8.5 I think is pretty low. I understand you have the team's top 2 aces on the mound, but the run total has gone over in 3 of the last 4 meetings between both teams. The last 2 games, at least, the losing team has scored 8 runs exactly. That's insane. So I think the run total going over would be the way to go in this one.
The next game in the American League, the Royals and the Rays, after seeing what happened last night in the cold in Kansas City and Tampa Bay. Now we'll see if they can win again. Brad Keller basically pick them against Rich Hill, and both these teams have played, obviously well out of the gate. Tampa Bay is trying to find some consistency, coming in at 9-8.
I'm just surprised that the Royals are 9-6 right now. Brad Keller, I don't know if a lot of people know about him. He's been pretty okay for Kansas City the last few years. He hasn't been substantially great, but he hasn't been awful either. And so I understand why Kansas City might be viewed as a favorite to some. I think I was looking at DraftKings this morning, and Kansas City had actually opened as the favorite, or they were the favorite at the time. But the underdog for Tampa Bay, the underdog has won, 7 straight games. So we'll see what the closing line is for this game. But whoever the underdog is, I would be leaning in that territory for this one.
The Angels and the Rangers from Anaheim and Shohei Ohtani.
Showtime.
Big favorite tonight against the Rangers. And Jordan Lyles pitched well on the road for Texas. He goes, and again, the Angels off the loss last night, and Ohtani's a big favorite.
Yeah, Angels, they've lost 5 in a row when they are favored on a Tuesday. Keep that in mind. Texas, they have won 2 of the last 3 games when facing Anaheim. Also, keep in mind that Texas has covered the run line in 3 of its last 4 games when facing the Angels. So there's a lot to like about Texas. We already talked about how good of an underdog they are this season. So, I don't know here. But Shohei Ohtani, to me, it's going to be interesting to see how the Angels use him moving forward. Is he going to have a pitch count? Is he going to have an inning limit? Because he's also hitting. These are things you need to consider when betting on the Angels, and Ohtani is getting the start. So just bear that in mind. But there are some good things, some good trends to like if you fancy Texas at all.
Minnesota and Oakland, they meet up from the Bay Area tonight, and they actually have a pair of games that they're playing.
Yeah.
And the last game, it's Jose Barrios against Jesus Luzardo. That's the 9:40 game. And the game, the early game, Matt Shoemaker and Sean Manaea, and the Twins off a couple of losses. The last, or actually, I should say a couple of days off, after they had some COVID issues, but they're back today. And Oakland off a 4-game sweep of Detroit, so now Oakland with a little bit better competition against Minnesota today.
Yeah, real quickly, some things to like about Oakland is that they have covered the run line in 4 of 5 when they are the underdog against Minnesota. Now, this is for Game 1. Obviously, trends will change after Game 1, so this is strictly for Game 1 of the doubleheader today. The run total has gone under in 4 or 5 games played between both teams, though. So if you do like the under, it's a shortened game. It's only 7 innings. Maybe that's where you want to look for Game 1 of today's doubleheader.
In game number, we'll talk about Game 2. Now let's look at the Interleague games.
Yes.
And Dodgers-Mariners, they are playing the second game of that series after Seattle won last night. And Marco Gonzalez, the best pitcher for the Mariners, he goes today. And he's a heavy underdog, but you'd expect the Dodgers, after losing 2 in a row, to bounce back and win.
Yeah, and the Dodgers, as much as I do like Seattle, I think they're better than advertising. I've got Marco Gonzalez going on the mound right now. It's very rare you'll see the Dodgers lose 3 in a row. And they have Julio Reyes on the mound, who's a very, very good pitcher. I don't know. I just think that there's a lot to like about the Dodgers tonight. I know I'm one of the Mariner advocates, but it's going to take a lot for me to bet against the Dodgers. Even So trends, they could be tricky. Dodgers have lost 2 games in a row. You could see that and say, okay, they're cold. They're probably going to lose 3 in a row. You could also look at that trend and say they're due to turn it around because they're just that good. So you need to be careful with trends. Personally, I whenever I see the Dodgers lose 2 in a row, my first thought is, okay, they're good enough to turn it around. They're playing with a chip, a little bit of an edge now against a team they should beat. So I like the Dodgers tonight, but again, Seattle, I'm very high on. I just can't pull the trigger against MLB's best team.
The Braves and Yankees, I don't know about premier game, but I mean, you have the 2 names there with the Yankees and the Braves. Ronald Acuna Jr., he is questionable. He had an abdominal injury against the Cubs a few days ago. And now the Yankees, 5-10 on the season. They've just lost 5 of 6 to Tampa Bay. Their offense has been terrible. And look, they're favorites tonight at home. But when's the offense going to come around? I feel like every time, at least this past weekend, watching the Yankees against the Rays, that Aaron Judge would come up, Giancarlo Stanton would come up. There'd be runners on base. I know Aaron Judge, I think, had one RBI in the Sunday game. But these guys come on base and they don't produce. You know, it's one thing to hit grand slams against the Baltimore Orioles, but, you know, against better teams, against the likes of Tampa Bay, against a team like Atlanta, who was 1 win from the World Series last year, they got to get some kind of offense going.
So Atlanta, they've seen the underdog win 7 of their last 8 games. They are the underdog tonight against a team that is 5-10. So I think there is tremendous value in considering Atlanta. And personally, I think Charlie Morton is better than Talion is, not just career-wise, but over the course of this very, very short season so far. So I think there's a lot to like about Atlanta. But if you do fancy New York at all, instead of taking them at minus 125 to win, Aaron Judge at plus 340 to hit a home run is worth a prop bet. He's hit a home run in 3 or 4 home games when facing the Braves. So I would look into those 2 markets, possibly Atlanta winning or Aaron Judge going yard in this one.
Pittsburgh and Detroit, not exactly 2 of the high-quality teams in Major League Baseball, but the Pirates have been pretty competitive, 7-9 so far. They took 2 of 3 at Milwaukee this past weekend. Detroit returns home off a very long road trip. You saw them sweep Houston, but then also lose all 4 at Oakland. They got shut out in back-to-back games, and they had a 2-1 lead late on Sunday against the A's. Oakland ends up beating them 3-2. And now Michael Fulmer and the Tigers favored for the first time this season. Tyler Anderson, I don't think he's a bad pitcher, southpaw, former Colorado Rocky and Giant, and he comes in as a short underdog tonight.
I think I like Detroit. You know, I don't want to bet on them because at minus 120, you'd have to be insane to take the Tigers. They're just one of the worst teams in baseball, so minus value, not really appealing to me. But the Pirates have lost 21 of 24 games when facing the American League. So it's tough to go with even the underdog here, as much as you know I like Pittsburgh and how competitive they are. I'm kind of torn here. One prop bet, we actually talked about Candelario before we came on air because we were talking about Detroit's lack of hitting. But Candelario is one of the silver linings in the Detroit lineup. He's actually gone yard in 3 of his last 4 games when facing the National League. So maybe take that. His odds to hit a home run is plus 700. So there's a lot of value there. There's a trend there. I'm just not sold on either team winning. Definitely not Detroit for minus 120. So I might take Candelario to hit a home run at plus 700. Good value there.
Baltimore is at Miami, and another not so great matchup. But the Marlins have played better of late. Now they're a short favorite against Matt Harvey and the Orioles, and Baltimore, who again, look at that road record, 6-3, pretty impressive. And the Marlins are only at 3-6 at home. Now, they're coming off a loss to the Giants on Sunday. But, look, 2 teams that aren't expected to do much, but at least they're playing better than people expected.
Yeah. Well, I like the Marlins. I've been high on the over 71.5 wins for them to start the season. Baltimore, they've actually seen the underdog win 4 of 5. Then you look at their road record compared to Miami's home record. I think there's a lot to like about Baltimore other than the pitcher on the mound, Matt Harvey. I have no conviction in him at all. I would probably skip this game, but if you must bet this game, I think there are some reasons to maybe go with the underdog here, considering Baltimore seeing the underdog win 4 or 5, and then you look again at the records on the road and at home for both respective teams. I think Baltimore might be a good pick, but I see Matt Harvey there, and that's what makes me second think betting this game.
The Rockies and the Astros wrap up the night in Major League Baseball, and Colorado at just 4-12 so far in the season, but at least all 4 wins are at home, which is good because they're 0 for the road. And Houston, 7-8 off a tough weekend at Seattle. They are down a few guys, Jose Altuve, Alex Bregman, they're hurt, so their offense, I mean, if you look at their lineup, you don't even recognize a lot of these guys because they have so many guys hurt. But Houston got off to that great start at Oakland and against the Angels, and they've just totally fallen apart since. But, again, pick your poison in this game because the Rockies, even though they've been better at home, they still have had a tendency to struggle, and now they're an underdog against Houston.
Yeah, I think, you see the 10.5, and you think, no, that's an insane run total. But you then remember quickly that they're playing in Colorado. The last 2 games in Colorado between these 2 teams have gone well over the run total. They scored 18 and 19, and the run totals were at 11.5 and 12 for those 2 games. So don't be afraid of the 10.5. I think going over is fine. You might even wait, maybe take a live bet if the run total goes down, maybe drops to 9 in the 3rd inning. Jump on that because it should go over. It should touch 10, but it should clear 10.5. Houston, they've won 9 in a row against Colorado, so if you fancy a winner, maybe lean in that direction a little bit, but I do expect runs to be scored in this game.
Now let's take a look at the NBA from Monday, and then we'll look ahead to Tuesday in the association. First, from last night, the big story, Steph Curry had a huge game for Golden State. How about this? He's hit 10 or more threes in 3 of the last 4 games. Not only say, he hit like it for the second time this year. In 3 of the last 4 games, this guy has hit 10 or more threes, which is insane. I know he's probably not going to win the MVP, but Golden State got off to a tough start last night, and they hold Philadelphia to 96 points. That's a great job there by the Warriors to win that game on the road.
Yeah, and considering Philadelphia, I would argue, is the best team in the NBA when playing at home. Other than Utah, definitely in the East. Philly is one of the best teams in the NBA when playing in their own home venue. So for Golden State and Steph Curry to come out and do what they did was very impressive. Steph Curry is becoming a very good prop bet to score over 30 points a game. It's almost at ease at this point. So if you can get anything good on Steph Curry moving forward, I would consider it. He's probably not going to win the MVP. I think Jokic has that wrapped up at this point, unless he has like a huge injury, which, knock on wood, hope he doesn't. I just don't see Steph Curry getting the MVP award. But great win by Golden State to go into a place that's very difficult to win and get the W.
Let's skip over to Chicago and Boston. I mean, Detroit beats Cleveland. Obviously, the game doesn't really mean much. But Chicago continues to be a really good road underdog of 4 more, something like that. And they end up coming back to beat Boston last night, 102-96. Kemba Walker didn't play. Marcus Smart didn't play. The Celtics run a nice run. They beat Golden State on Saturday night, and Chicago's without Zach LaVine. But that's a really nice win for the Bulls to go on the road and beat the Celtics.
Yeah, and what really won Chicago that game was them coming out of the locker room at halftime and just firing on all cylinders. And that you look at the box score, 32-18. That was the game right there. So good win for Chicago. And like you said, Kevin, they're becoming really good road underdogs in terms of covering the spread. And I know we had a little bit of concerns when they traded for Vucevic because we heard some internal distraught in the locker room when that move happened. But they are playing well a little bit, starting to gel more and more. But again, that third quarter was the story of the game last night.
The Heat, without Jimmy Butler, they beat the Rockets 113-91, a close game early. But then the Heat bust out after Houston beat Orlando the night before. Do you think maybe the Heat have a letdown after they beat Brooklyn on Sunday? But the Heat, that's a win that they really needed, that you couldn't afford to lose to Houston at home.
No, and Houston, they were actually doing a pretty good job of covering against teams with a winning record. But that was not the case. And I think now Houston has lost 17 of 19 on the road, or 16 of 18 on the road. So not too surprised by the results. But Houston, now that they have Wall and Wood back, they're covering more as underdogs. So just bear in mind that even though Houston did not cover against Miami last night, typically they are covering against teams with winning records.
I did not think, it barely covered. I didn't think Washington would cover 12.5 against Oklahoma City, but they barely do the Thunder. So the Thunder finally get a cover after they went through all these close losses at Washington. That game stays under the total. The ending in the Phoenix-Milwaukee game was very interesting. This was a back-and-forth game. The Suns force overtime, And then in overtime, Devin Booker had the three-point attempt at the end. He was fouled by P.J. Tucker. There was controversy on whether it was a foul or not, but he made the free throw, and the Suns end up winning. The Suns have been a great team against the top teams in the league. Another road underdog win for them. And Phoenix, that's a really good bounce back after they had a really poor showing against San Antonio over the weekend.
Yeah, and I mean, they were kind of due for that showing against San Antonio. I think Phoenix has done so well this year that we're almost expecting them to drop a few games before the playoffs start at this point, just because it's very difficult to maintain the momentum they've had all year for the whole year. I think that honestly goes to Monty Williams and his coaching, how well he's done. So if you're looking for an outsider, a value pick, for Coach of the Year odds, the favorite is Quinn Snyder. I like Monty Williams at maybe plus 300, plus 350. I haven't looked at the odds this morning, but he's right in that territory, and I think he's a legit contender with good odds to test in the Coach of the Year market.
San Antonio wins at Indiana 109-94, so the Spurs back to 500, and Indiana, Sabonis didn't play last night. You see the offense totally struggle and only scored 94 points. Denver over Memphis, 139-137 in two overtimes. A crazy game.
Took the over in that one.
Yeah, and the Grizzlies, they continue. We talked about it yesterday. Their over trend over the last 10, 11 games has been very good. They continue to cover numbers. So the Knicks are a very hot team against the spread, but the Grizzlies are as well. Even though they lose that game, they still get the cover. And, again, for Memphis, another tough loss for them, and it's really going to hurt them trying to win that Southwest, losing these games by 2 points.
Yeah, and I mean, that's what they are, though. They're one of these teams that are on the cusp of being a good team, a legit contender. They're just not there yet. I think another year under their belt is going to do them well. Obviously, Jaren Jackson being out has been a big difference. But with Denver, and we touched on this a little bit already with Jokic. I think he's going to win the MVP this year. I haven't looked at the odds. They're probably too expensive to take right now. But with Jamal Murray out, what you're starting to see with Jokic is his assist totals go back up a little bit. And he is actually killing the triple-double market, which you can get for plus value in Denver games moving forward. So with Murray out, look at Jokic's value to record a triple-double as a prop bet moving forward with the Nuggets, because he should hit on that more times than not. He should get at least 10 or 11 assists with Murray out, and you will get plus value for triple-doubles with him. So just bear that in mind with Denver moving forward.
The Jazz get some revenge after they lost to the Lakers on Saturday in overtime. Now they win at 111-97 last night. Donovan Mitchell's still hurt, but that game stays under, and Utah really couldn't afford to lose two to this Laker team that's still playing without LeBron and Anthony Davis. But the Jazz, seeing that Phoenix won last night, seeing that Denver won, they really had to win that game.
Yeah, good win on the road, too. I think what was more impressive with Utah is that they covered on the road, because they have really struggled covering on the road. They play very well at home. They cover at home. They win at home. They win on the road, but they tend to struggle covering on the road. So they get the cover against a Laker team who's a little bit hot right now, but they're ready for their two big boys to come back into that lineup with the playoffs right around the corner. So don't put too much into the Lakers games right now for what they are going to be as the season ends and heading into the postseason. But Utah on the road, good cover. They haven't done well this year, so it was a good win for them, even without Lakers having their best players.
Tonight, not that many games in the NBA. Atlanta laying 12 against Orlando, and obviously the Magic, a beat-up team, but Orlando's actually been pretty good as a road underdog recently, so maybe they're worth a look there. Brooklyn, New Orleans, that's the first TNT game tonight, and no Kevin Durant for the Nets. He's out with the thigh contusion. James Harden's still out, and New Orleans, as a home favorite, they haven't been good, but I'll give you this one, Tom. New Orleans so far this year against the top teams in the East at home. They beat Philadelphia. They beat Milwaukee. I don't know where you rank Boston. They beat them as well. But they were underdogs in all those games. Now they're favored against Brooklyn. And the Pelicans off a couple of tough losses on the road to the Wizards and Knicks. So you got to think that New Orleans should be pretty motivated here in this game tonight to beat a Brooklyn team that's not at full strength.
Yeah, you would think so. I understand Brooklyn's not at full strength, but they've won 4 in a row against the Pelicans. I think the point total going over is worth a look here. The point total has gone over in 3 of the last 4 games played between both teams. Then you look at the seasonal OU record for both teams. Brooklyn, they are 34-23 on the OU, which is 3rd highest in the NBA in terms of the point total going over. Then you go to New Orleans. They're number 1 in the NBA, 36-20 on the OU. So I think going over the point total might be the bet for this game tonight.
The Knicks continue to roll, and they're laying 5.5 against Charlotte. And the Hornets, they broke their losing streak. They beat the Blazers a few nights ago without Damian Lillard, and Charlotte got P.J. Washington back in that game. They scored 44 in the first quarter. Offense really does nothing the rest of the game, but they built enough in that first quarter to hold off the Blazers. And New York, look at that, 18-10 at the Garden, 31-27 overall. You wonder if this is the one they stubbed their toe on after a lot of close wins they've had, but also it's tough for me to back Charlotte on the road.
I actually like the Knicks in this one. New York, they've covered the spread in 9 straight games. That's not an accident. And New York, they've actually won 11 straight home games when they are the favorite. So I think there's a lot to like about the Knicks tonight. I would go New York over Charlotte. Maybe if Charlotte was full strength, I would consider the Hornets with an upset, but I think there's too much to like about the Knicks right now. They have the trends, they have the momentum, and they're at home. I like New York to win and to cover this game.
Minnesota and Sacramento. They got to play the game, don't they? So Minnesota's 5-24 on the road. The Kings just lost to the Timberwolves at Minnesota, and now Sacramento's laying 3.5. They're off a really good win at Dallas a few nights ago, and they covered at Phoenix, so now you're laying 3.5. High total. They stayed under last time they played at Target Center, and good luck if you are even attempting to watch this game.
I mean, watch or wager on it. I mean, really, this is difficult. So you have a few trends that cross each other here. Sacramento has failed to cover the spread in 9 of 10 home games when facing a team with a losing record. Somewhat alarming. Even more alarming, Minnesota has lost 7 straight road games. So I really don't know what to tell you in terms of if you're picking a winner here, but the point total has gone under in 4 of the last 5 meetings between both teams, so maybe look into that market. But this is a very difficult game to wager, despite, there's not going to be a lot of eyeballs in this game because you're talking about two of the worst teams in the NBA right now. But I think point total going under would be one of the safer bets if you have the courage to bet this game. It's going to be a tough one, though.
The last game of the night, the TNT game, Clippers and Blazers out in Portland. The Clippers have beaten the Blazers so far twice this season, both at Staples Center. LA's first trip to Portland this season. Damian Lillard out again for the Blazers. They're 1-1 in his 2 games that he's been out. I mean, they should have lost to San Antonio probably on Friday, but they come back and win that game. They dig themselves the big hole against Charlotte on Sunday. But I still think there's a lot of points for the Clippers to lay. I really do. Portland, they've struggled at home recently. They lost to Boston and Miami. Now you're getting 7 in a double revenge spot for the Blazers. I mean, we know what the Clippers are with Kawhi and Paul George. But the Blazers, I think they're worth the shots tonight. I really do, because people will be all over the Clippers.
Yeah, they will, because, I mean, you look at some records, and the Clippers, they're 36-23 against the spread, where Portland's 27-29. But then you also see Damian Lillard's out, but Portland's at home, and 7 is a lot. So it makes the point spread a little bit difficult in my mind to predict. I don't even like the point total in this one, because you have Portland, who's 29-27 on the OU, and then you have LA, who's 31-27. Essentially, it leans over, but what you're talking about is something that is essentially split. So it's very difficult to decipher between those two. Look, the Clippers, they've won and covered 5 in a row against Portland. Portland's without their best player. Again, they're at home. 7 is a lot. Push comes to shove. If you're forcing me to pick a winner here with the spread, I'm going to take the Clippers, but I think this is a very difficult game to decipher. I have a prop bet trend, however, that revolves around C.J. McCollum with Damian Lillard out. C.J. McCollum has seen 7 or more assists in 5 straight home games when Damian Lillard is out. C.J. McCollum right now is at over 5.5 assists, over under. So look in that market if the spread or the point total worries you a bit. I would maybe look into C.J. McCollum's assist total.
And don't forget, you can purchase picks for the NBA, Major League Baseball, NHL if you go to our Buy Picks page. $29.95 for daily expert picks for the NBA, and you see all the picks that are available. I know it's not as big of a night in the NBA, but also the guaranteed picks, $39.95 per handicapper. Pay after it wins. If it wins, you pay. If it loses, you pay nothing. So it is simple as that. And before we get to the contest for today, so Thom Cunningham is also our Oscars expert. I guess you can call it. He is. I mean, we don't have a big staff, so he's taken over that role. But so a couple things. One, you watched
38 movies.
38 movies. Okay, 38 movies nominated for various awards for the Oscars coming up Sunday. You interviewed Johnny Avello from DraftKings, and that video is up if you want to check it out on our homepage. It's a really interesting interview. Johnny, he's been a long-time odds maker out in Vegas. He moved to DraftKings about a year ago or so, and his passion is movies and odds for movies, and just tell us the process and what you've gone through, because you've just knocked out all these movies and what you like and where you think there's value.
Okay, I'll try to keep this short and sweet. I watched 38 films, equivalent to 71 and a half hours to get ready for this. I can't even count the amount of streaming accounts I've had to activate to get all these movies. But Mr. Avello, he was great. He's been actually setting odds for the Oscars for 28 years now. That's just mind-blowing to me. And it's interesting because with this particular market, you typically see heavy favorites. So it's really, do you even want to take a chance on one of these heavy favorites? Because if they lose, you'll get burnt. Do you want to find value in some long odds, but they're probably not going to win? This is a very tricky market to bet. But what DraftKings, I found out, is doing is they're allowing you to parlay, which is a game changer to me, because you see there's over 20 categories you can bet on. Let's just say there's 20. Let's just say of the 20, 15, you're looking at the favorites at minus 500, minus 400, or higher. So parlaying becomes very key for this event, and DraftKings is letting you parlay. I think that's huge. So, definitely you want to go check out that video. We have betting predictions, betting odds, picks, insight, everything you could think of revolving this event. Go on our homepage, check it out. It's all there. It's such a unique but interesting thing to cover. I can tell you this, Kevin. I'm going to need at least a week at the beach now, because I just spent 71 and a half hours in front of my OLED TV. So it was fun. I'm probably not going to watch another movie for another year after I just watched all those. But, it was interesting to say the least. And I do think there is something to the future of this market, whether we see more odds open in terms of, which film is going to finish in second place or third place or fourth place, things like that. But we'll see. I know Michigan just hopped on board. We have Indiana, New Jersey, and Michigan where this is legally regulated to bet on. And according to Mr. Avello, they're still working on more states to greenlight this before Sunday. So there's a lot that's going to take place between now and Sunday for this particular market. So just keep your eyes and ears open. It's fun, though. It's definitely fun, but it's definitely different. Check it out. I mean, even if you're not into movies or anything like that, from a sports betting perspective, it's just interesting. So, check all that content out that we have around the Oscars for the big event on Sunday.
Yeah, it should be a lot of fun, and you can see the movies. And obviously, the good thing about a lot of these movies, you don't have to go to the theater. You can watch them online. So, want to tell you now about the Daily Insider contest that we have every day here on VegasInsider.com. You go to this video on our YouTube channel, and below in the comments section, you leave your user ID from VegasInsider.com and your best bet for the night, whether it's baseball, basketball, hockey, doesn't matter. Your best bet. You have to be a subscriber to our YouTube channel at Vegas Insider, and also make sure you have an ID at VegasInsider.com. If you don't have an ID, we'll show you right now how you get an ID. The big yellow register button. It's big, it's yellow, you can't miss it. And you go to the free membership, register now under number 1, and you create your ID and password. You create your account with all your information, or at least some of your information. Not all. We're not going to take your blood type, but we got all of that. So you create that, so then you can leave your ID in there, your user ID name, and your best bet for the night. Now, now, what do you win? If you win, it's a drawing, and again, you have to win your best bet. You can't lose your best bet. You have to win the best bet. You will be in the drawing to receive a week's worth of handicapper picks from any handicapper on VegasInsider.com. So our marketing team will get in touch with you, and that's why we need the user ID, because if your name is just John Smith and that's it, that's not helpful. So we need your user ID.
No futures market picks. No, if a game started or a tennis match already started, that's. Don't send in picks for games that have already started. You will not win. We won't choose you. Or futures bet too. That's just impossible. So
And also no live betting either. It's got to be before the game. Yeah. So just leave it on the comments section underneath the video. And if you don't win today, guess what? You got tomorrow or the next day. So it's not the end of the world if you don't win today. But leave your user ID from VegasInsider.com. Make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube channel and leave your best bet for Tuesday's action. So with all that being said, for Thom Cunningham, I am Kevin Rogers, and we appreciate you tuning into the latest edition of the Daily Insider right here on VegasInsider.com. And we look forward to talking to you again coming up on Wednesday at noon right here on our YouTube channel. And as always, best of luck with your bets.
Happy 420.